It's episode 5, series 2. We're back with another episode of FutureSounds FM. I'm joined by Mr. Patrick Fakeman and Mr. Thom Hosken. We have a slightly slimmed down panel this week because Rob's decided to go and watch his favourite anti-vaxxer play hit the ball with a racket at Wimbledon, which he looks like he's having a nice sunny evening. In fair, he's gone to see Djokovic play, which is pretty cool. Centre court. Not many people get a chance to get onto centre court, so it's quite exciting for him, I'm sure. I'm quite a big tennis fan as well, but I haven't really watched much of it yet.
Centre court's probably about 4 or 5 miles from where I live, and it's a beautiful evening. It was a bit of rain earlier on, so he probably got rained on, but he's wearing a suit
and my Pet Flamingo hat, the same hat that I'm wearing right now, which is really good for an audio-only podcast. We got plenty.
Was that him throwing puzzle pieces all over the court and orange confetti?
Was that another Stop Oil protest, was it?
Yeah.
Happened twice.
They threw puzzle
It happened at the
pieces
cricket
out
last week.
What I found today was the most British thing about the issue at Wimbledon today was that someone went through security with a 100-piece puzzle in their bag, and no one questioned it at Wimbledon. Oh, they just come to see Wimbledon. They might play a bit of a puzzle.
Well, people do go and sit on, is it Henman Hill, or do people call it Murray Mound these days? But
I think it's Murray Mound.
And people sit on there and they have their strawberries and cream and their champagne, and they spend a good day on having a picnic. To be honest with you, that part of it always seemed more appealing to me than being stuck in a seat, being courtside, because it looks like it's quite easy to get to the bar, have a few drinks. It's like Electronicon for people who like racquetball instead. And on that note, I grafted that one in. I thought I'd try and get us back into vaporwave chat, but yeah, Electronicon is coming up in a good few weeks. I don't think we need to touch too much on the kind of live issue around the controversy of putting John Mouse on the bill. Sure. All I would say is we can include the link to this and point people in the direction of George's podcast. He did a great effort. So shouts going out to Hot Takes podcast. They did a kind of a dedicated episode with George explaining the situation. And the most kind of take home from that was that George has found himself in a difficult position and is trying to do the best he can to resolve that. And it's clearly upset a lot of people, and there are strong feelings about it. And yeah, we're allies for the LGBTQ community collectively. I'm sure I can speak on behalf of all 3 of us. In fact, everyone is on the pod. But hopefully, now that the steps are being taken to kind of address those issues, people will start, hopefully, to focus on the party itself and the music, because he does do a good job of bringing together, some of the underground artists and some of the better known, and trying to blend it with some of the more sort of mainstream electronica artists, and that kind of seems to be where the problem arose, the latter part of that on the lineup. But yeah, we're going to New York. Are you going to go? We are. Yeah, we the 3 of us are going. Me, Tom and Jay are going to go out there. There's a tape swap happening on the Sunday, I think, and there's something happening on the Thursday night that you guys are playing at as Donor Lens. Is that right, Tom?
Yeah, so I think it'll be safe to announce this now, because it's being announced on social media as we're recording, actually. So Pad Chennington and Geometric Lullaby are organising an event on the Thursday in Brooklyn, I believe, the day before the official events kind of kick off. And yeah, very excited to say that Donor Lens will be playing. Some other cool acts playing: Frank Javsi, Fake Fever, Groceries. Yeah, Daydream Deluxe has come all the way over from Oz. It'll be great to meet them.
Wow, it'd be nice to meet them. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of closing out the party, which is cool.
With a DJ set, presumably.
Yeah, outdoor DJ set. There's 2 stages, so it's like the kind of URL festivals that are happening during lockdown, but IRL. Very cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Kind of on that subject, I was doing some transcription for the film, because I've said this before, I think, but we're going through each of the individual interviews, taking out the best bits, time-stamping them. Chris, as the director, is chopping up those clips so that they're all there to be kind of, starting to be processed as part of a broader film, which is coming together. And Data Girl was talking quite a lot about just how crazy it is when you go to these community events before something like Electronicon. Everyone's absolutely hyped for the main event, but to meet up with the community before that, kind of everyone relaxing together, all these online friendships that might not have met in real life. I know that's probably less so now because there's been a few of these shows, but it is such a good opportunity with Econ and all the ecosystem around it to get the community together and off just being friends online. I do love that aspect of it. And she talked really passionately about her first experience of meeting up with so many people who'd she'd only ever met online.
Yeah, I think that's how I saw it last year in terms of, because I had arrived the day before the tape swap last year for Econ 3, and I hadn't met anybody at all from that point of view. So that was, despite my epic jet lag, that was how that. So that makes the following day, you don't feel like you feel like you can just enjoy the music and enjoy the time because you've met the people that you want to meet and had those initial conversations. So I'm glad you boys are going out. That's
was Tom's first one?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there was my baby was being born this time last year, like to the day.
Yeah,
because he turned 1 yesterday. So
happy birthday, Rye.
Nice one. But yeah, that was what stopped me attending last year. I think probably would have had a new child and a new divorce if I'd flown out this time last year. So permission to travel this year. Yeah, exactly. Life happens at once,
Yeah, and Limo as well is coming over. Probably going to be staying with him again in Brooklyn somewhere. We're going to have to sort that out ASAP before things get too expensive. But yeah, there's going to be a tape swap thing. Indy, I know, is putting together something for the Sunday, but I don't really have any more details about that at the minute. But I'm sure that will be, by the time this podcast goes out and over the next few days and couple of weeks, he'll be announcing that. I can kind of, I might as well also do a little hype tease for FlamingoFest, which we've kind of talked about a few times on this pod about how we had long-term plans to turn the URL festival we did back in 2020, which was basically 2 days straight of so many amazing artists showcasing all of the many multifaceted layers of subgenre within the scene that we're part of, and we're kind of finally getting to the stage of putting that into real life, and that's going to be happening in November, and we'll be announcing the venue, the dates, and kind of the lineup over the next couple of weeks. So yes, it is happening. The contract has been signed. Watch this space, FlamingoFest IRL.
Super exciting to hear you say the words in
FlamingoFest IRL. So yeah, pretty cool.
Definitely up for that. And as you guys know, I turned 40 3 days after that event, so I'm super excited to attend the event and then chill for a couple of days and then go do some stuff for my 40th. So I'm very excited.
Nice. I'm gonna have my birthday out there as well, actually.
Are you? Well, in New York or in LA?
Yeah, in LA. Well, November the 6th. So I think.
Oh, I'm the 7th.
Yeah, I know. We're B-Day twins.
Hey,
okay, guys. Well done. You've pretty much given the date away now. So just count back and find the nearest weekend to that, and you won't go too far wrong. So if you're looking at getting an early jump on travel, if you're flying from around the world or from within the States or whatever, there's your clue. You know when it is, even if we haven't yet announced the date by that point. But yeah, I'm pretty sure we could do another pod in a couple of weeks' time or next week where we can kind of focus on that and talk about the lineup and a bit more and get people hyped and ready for that show.
Lovely stuff.
So what else?
Other podcasts, I think we should shout out a new podcast in the game, which is Alex from Pacific Plaza, Trucks Passing Trucks. He's got the Vaporwave News Network podcast, which is fantastic. It's such a slick, well-produced podcast, kind of forcing me to up my editing game. There's no fat on it at all. It's really concise and really, really thorough, really well researched. Nice. Great production values and a great listen. So yeah, shout out that, the Vaporwave News Network podcast.
Are they focused on doing interviews with artists episode by episode, or do they play music? What kind of can you tell us a bit more about the pod itself and where can people find it?
All the normal podcast places, and he's just kind of done deep dives on specific genres, like including this kind of vapor breaks, Vaporwave Zero, what we call vapor rave. He did a special on that.
Cool. So mini documentaries almost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like little audio essays, and then he shouts out upcoming events, of which there are loads in the States, and we're part of a very small number of people doing it over in the UK and Europe. But yeah, he shouted out our FutureSounds event, actually, which we should talk about.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, Miami '89. I'm going to go back 2 weeks. Is it 2 weeks since we did that? Obviously, that was
it was 2.5 weeks.
Heavily synthwave focused. We had a lineup featuring Morgan Willis, who'd flown in from France. Future Cop came down from Manchester, as well as New Arcades, Iverson, and yourself and me doing DJ sets as well. I think that was everyone on the lineup, wasn't it? I'm not missing someone there, am I?
That was everyone.
Yeah, and we kind of moved to a slightly bigger venue. It was Herne Hill in South London, and it kind of felt, my concern going into it was how well doing a genre specific event like this was, because we previously really tried to stick to this kind of method of doing a vaporwave and synthwave night, or like, you know, incorporating all the different strands, and this was very much like a synth only event. And there's not been as many, I want to say big for UK standards anyway, maybe not compared to America, but there's not been many big synthwave events in the last couple of years that I'm aware of. And so it was a kind of a test to see the state of the grassroots scene there, and I was really pleased by how many people came out and how well received it seemed to be.
Yeah. It was our biggest event to date in terms of people. It was also the most chilled out in terms of being organised, because those that put on events know how much you learn from event to event to event. I think what was also really lovely about it was, having been kicking around the synthwave scene for a good number of years now, plenty of people that I'd never met before. That were there as well, and I think that was what. Don't get me wrong, it's great, but you often see the same sort of faces. And what was great was a huge stack of people I'd never met before that were really having a great time. So yeah, I was super happy with how it turned out. Everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves, and there
definitely seemed to be a lot of new blood there. And synthwave has changed, it's evolved. Like the early days, Future Cop kind of represents a very direct lineal passage back to the origins of it. You know, the very clear outrun style, very much based on kids' cartoons. You know, I get Thundercats vibes, you know, like proper 1980s childhood memories of people of a certain age. And definitely over the last couple of years, you've seen a transition to more and more people doing more complex production, more singer-songwriter angles, and the style of it has changed a lot. But there's definitely new faces coming into the scene, which is good.
And big shouts out to, in terms of the event, to Will Cunningham, who did all our visuals, and as usual, you know, he did our last one, and he's done some previous stuff. Is always on the money. It looked really great. Really happy with it. Shouts to Charlie for doing some great photos for the evening as well. Always, as usual, shouts to Glenn for the artwork on the posters. It was exactly what we expected it to be and what we wanted. So big shouts to him. So there's other little sort of support network that surrounds the events as well, of people who are always willing to contribute and to turn up and have a good time, and we couldn't do it without you, so thank you.
And on that note, we did miss someone first. Jack, Space Jams.
Oh, and Jack, of course.
And that idea of collaboration as well, because obviously we've helped him out with some of the events that he's done in Bristol, which is where he kind of bases most of his shows, like even just helping out with things on the merch side and stuff like that. But there is a healthy sense of collaboration within the UK synthwave scene with the way that you can team up with other people, and there's not a sense of competition. It's more a case of, we don't need events every weekend. We just need good events semi-regularly, and we need to keep the scene active and healthy in order for it to grow and flourish as a genuine live scene, as opposed to just a Bandcamp scene. So shout to Jack. He came down and did an amazing set to close out the night. I think he got heckled and hassled, because by that time they'd kind of the garden space, which wasn't in the ticketed area, there were a few girls around him that were basically just saying, "This is shit. Can you play Beyonce?" Like the way I was going to say it was that he did amazingly well with. At one point, I walked in from having had a cigarette, and he had 8 women around him, all asking him to do X, Y, and Z, and he's talking to them. He's mid-mix. He doesn't do it with headphones. Jack does it all visually in terms of how his DJ software works. So he's looking rather than listening, and he's talking. So it was like that. It was like that 3D Blast and Data Girl meme from Electronicon last year. Except for there were 8 Data Girls talking to him at the same time.
Yeah. He, I got an Uber back with him, and I think from what initially he thought was a challenging evening, I think he then realised was actually quite an accomplishment. Yeah. So big shouts to Jack, and it got to the point where ultimately the venue told us to go home rather than us finishing
because it was dying out
and leaving. Yeah, so they just told us we needed to leave. And that's always a good way to end an evening, as far as I'm concerned.
My one take home, if we use that venue again, is to remember that every Sunday there's a street market. So the whole road leading up to it was just no cars. So me and my brother had to come back, pick up all the gear that we'd had. And there was shitloads of merch we had to bring back.
Yeah, the morning after.
The decks and stuff like that. And we had to like make our way through all these like high-end hipster sausage rolls and...
you're dodging the bugaboos.
Yeah, hemp woven like fanny packs and stuff. You were saying there's not too long to wait. We're doing a pretty vapor-centric thing soon, aren't we?
Yeah, it was going to happen this summer, wasn't it? But we've pushed it back really so we can kind of focus on the events happening in New York, really. But when we're back in the UK, not long after that, right? I don't think we're going to announce it right now, are we? But it won't be.
No, but there'll be a vapor, one for the vapor heads, the UK vapor heads.
Yeah, so. With some big acts.
Yeah, man. So the meat of this episode is another really fascinating interview that you've done.
And event focused as well. I mean, so had Shirobon in the studio this time last week, and really what he was here to talk about in the main is his Club BIOS event, which is happening at the Glove That Fits, which is in sort of Homerton, Hackney area. Yeah. That's on the 14th of July. And we've talked quite a lot about sort of vaporwave events being quite a new thing. So sort of IRL genres finding a in-person home and events kind of becoming a more regular thing. So I guess this is the kind of first statement of this sort of emerging Y2K video game beats kind of movement that sort of... massively taken off online, kind of maybe best represented by Pizza Hotline's Level Select album, which has gone crazy on the algorithm. And Pizza Hotline will be one of the performers there, alongside sort of a bunch of other chiptune acts who come from Shirobon's kind of music scene. I'd say I would describe Shirobon as a 50% chiptune artist, 50% synthwave artist. So there's a bunch of chiptuners there, and there's an act called Jason Page, who's like an OG PlayStation composer. He composed like a load of music for all the old demo discs and stuff.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, the event's called Club BIOS and happening on the 14th of July.
We'll post links in the description for that. But yeah, he's a fascinating guy, and it's interesting that you kind of signpost his... what's the way of describing it? His kind of allegiance to like video game music. Because I don't know if you heard this yesterday, and Bandcamp they've introduced a new feature like listening parties, which I managed to jump on. I was in the chat with you, Fakeman, and Glenn, I think it was, shared a link to the Beckett launch yesterday. And what it is essentially, is you can post an album to play as live with a chat room, essentially. And I think that we've done a few of those kind of things using our YouTube channel, but obviously this is a more direct way for people to immediately purchase the album and directly interact with the artists who are releasing it. I think it was quite an interesting and enjoyable way to experience listening to an album firsthand, kind of chatting in the comments below with other synthwave fans. And his album, it's a new album by Beckett called Pixel Perfect, which is really like I want to say it reminds me a lot of the very early synthwave that used to use samples from like YouTube newsreel from the footage from the 80s, like very early Outrun, but it's very much sounds like 8-bit, 16-bit computer game soundtrack music as well, which is...
It's very authentic.
Yeah, do you remember the track by Botnet? I think it's called High Score, and it uses that that American newsreel footage about the kind of mass panic about, or moral panic you might call it, about the impact that video games were going to have on kids who were just addicted and stuff like that. And it kind of, it's this fun tune that plays on the chaos and fear that people had about kids suddenly becoming obsessed with video games. And that really sums up the style of this, and kind of there's some parallels there with what Shirobon's doing, but I think his is kind of more modern sounding, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a few generations on in terms of consoles. I'm not sure which generation. I think it's technically the 6th generation. I think that's what you call it. I'm not sure, but yeah, PlayStation 2 era, Dreamcast era consoles. The artwork for Club BIOS references the kind of startup screen on a PS2. That's the aesthetic they're going for. But yeah, kind of Y2K aesthetics. There'll be lots of breaks. There'll be trance sounds. Kind of Prodigy style, kind of industrial type sounds there too.
Sounds right up my street. But yeah, shouts to Shirobon. Obviously, the interview itself's fascinating. We'll play that in a minute. But just a quick shout out again to Beckett, and we'll link this in the description as well. But you can find that album Pixel Perfect at Project Beckett with 2 T's at the end, .bandcamp.com.
Wicked. All right, so this is the interview I did with Shirobon this time last week. From my studio in Northeast London. Shirobon's also a North London resident, North London represent. Enjoy. Give us a pop and we'll hear what it sounds like on the mic. Very cool. Let's check that. Cool. So I'm here with Mikey, aka Shirobon. It's the first FutureSounds interview in a hot minute. We've been on a kind of unintended hiatus, but things have been happening in the meantime. We've been doing live shows and stuff, and but yeah, we're back on the wagon. So thanks a lot for coming to the studio. You haven't had too many people down here. Like one of the last people to come down here was our mutual friend Harvey, aka Pizza Hotline. Yeah. So yeah, a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, pleasure to be here. Thank you.
We were just having like a delicious pizza outside. We should really have stuck a microphone on that conversation.
Yeah, pizza talk.
Yeah, I think maybe we should just go for a new format, New
format.
In Tom's garden.
Saucy and cheesy.
Nice. That's the name of the podcast. Oh, that's for the Patreon too, FutureSounds. Yeah, saucy and cheesy. Nice. So yeah, I wanted to ask you, what's the kind of origin of the Shirobon name? Like where does this come from?
Oh, so the Shirobon name, back when I started in when was it? 2006. I was just noodling around with some tunes and needed something for my MySpace profile so I could show my mates. And obviously it said oh, what's your name? And I was a bit stuck. And I rummaged through my old Sega Mega Drive games.
Yep.
And it was Bomberman.
Yep.
On the Sega. I was just looking at I think I just went on the Wikipedia and was reading about it, and the main character from Bomberman's called Shirobon.
And does that mean something? Do you know?
It means white bomber.
Cool.
But at the time, I don't even think I looked that up. I just went, oh, that sounds cool. And I like Japan and video games, and I'm making stuff on Game Boys and things, so it just made sense. And it was just a temporary name, and then just
those are the ones that stick, right?
Yeah, and then just kept putting out songs, and then
that's cool. I don't think the Beatles intended to be called the Beatles forever, or the Arctic Monkeys intended.
I didn't realize until just the other month actually that Beatles is a pun.
Yeah, because it's so shit.
Yeah. It's one of those ones. It's just completely bypassed me for years, and then one day I looked at it and went, wait, that's not spelt right. Oh, it's beat because.
Yeah, because they were a beat combo. Yeah. I mean, I think we all agonize over names, and obviously they're important, but at the same time, they're kind of not, right?
I think most artists go through a phase where they're I want to change my name, I don't like it. But if you think about it, so many amazing artists have really bad names.
Yeah, for sure.
It's if you were starting a band, it's oh, what are you called? And you're oh, we're going to be called the White Stripes. What
it doesn't sound that cool. It sounds very school-aged.
The Doors. You're the Door. What? That's not cool. But obviously, when you put out the music, I think the music makes the name.
Yeah, for
in a lot of cases.
I think you shouldn't be faffing around sort of changing names and stuff. It's like, sometimes that's quite a cynical maneuver as well. Like the easiest way to spot an industry plant is like a band appears from nowhere and they've got a team in place and stuff, and the prehistory is always that they were sort of toiling under a previous name, and then they've kind of buried that project and started another. You know, I think in our sort of internet music scene, I don't think we need to do that. I think we can just kind of work with it, and if we have some kind of reinventions, but you know, the name stays the same, but there's some kind of reinventions of sound, then you know, we've got an audience that kind of grows with that, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, this day and age, there's so much music online, it's hard even finding a name that isn't taken these days, which is why you find so many people where like the E's are freeze and they just spell things weird because so much stuff's taken. So even if you get something that's real words, that's a win now, I think.
For sure. Yeah, like a unique name is the Doors and the Beatles were taken, right? Like the kind of the actual words.
So
you're the only Shirobon as far as you know. Are there any other Shirobons?
Only other Shirobon I know is a breakdancer in Japan.
Cool.
And now and then we interact with each other, but it's very, very minimal. But I think we just appreciate each other's presence. But in terms of music, that's
cool.
Seen.
Well, you've done well to find a unique name. So you were talking about the MySpace era. That was obviously a while ago. You've been, in this game for a hot minute.
Yeah, like I said, started in 2006. So if I had a kid then, they'd nearly be old enough to drink. So it's definitely been around a little while.
Nice. And that the aesthetics of that era are sort of back in vogue. Like I know, you think about Grimes and Charlie XCX, like they're kind of operating under their MySpace handles now, and I think there's like a interest from Gen Z kids in the kind of the aesthetics of the early social media age.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, just the other week, me and an old friend of mine went to see Machine Girl.
Cool.
And when we were at the gig, I remember turning around and like looking at most of the audience were like 20 or something, and looking around and like how people were dressed and like the energies and stuff. I remember turning to my mate Freddie, who I met on MySpace even before I started doing music. I remember turning around and being like, it's like MySpace all over again.
That's funny.
He was
MySpace,
like, oh my god, you're right. And that, in fact, there's people in the crowd holding out their phones playing RuneScape on it, and it's like that whole aesthetics just completely come back around.
Yeah, somebody kind of made a clone of MySpace recently. I think it's called Space
Hey. Yeah, I haven't made a profile. It felt too
That's
dangerous.
A step too far, isn't it?
Yeah, I was like, some things are better. Left in the town of nostalgia.
Yeah, it was like an important time in our lives, right? Like the fact that it was kind of a bit more customizable than the Facebook is such a bland and blank interface.
Yeah.
MySpace, you could really sort of get in there with the HTML and fling it out.
And then you had your like profile songs and things as well.
Yeah.
And then obviously always got into drama about who's in your top 8 and stuff, where now none of the socials makes you pick your favorite friends to show on your homepage,
I'm just going to do a very like un-audio friendly show and tell just for Mikey's benefit, but I don't know if you've seen this. This is my I made a record under the name Wichita LimeWire with like a fake. That's Tom from MySpace.
Yeah.
Me from MySpace.
Wait, have you seen what Tom's up to?
He's a travel photographer, isn't he? Yeah. He's
just living his best life. Remember, I saw a thing where someone like tried tweeting him or something, being like, "Oh, MySpace died, you're a failure" or something. He just went, "No, I brought it up to his peak when it took over the world, sold it, and now I travel the world taking
Justin
photos
Timberlake,
and
right?
living my best life." Oh yeah, it was to Justin, wasn't it? Poor Justin. Well, yeah, no, this is great. I need to needs properly.
Yeah, that's that's my like silly vaporwave alias, Wichita LimeWire. But I made a record about these kind of early social media sort of missteps and kind of it was a more kind of innocent time, but it was also the start of the internet kind of morphing into what it is today, which is a bit of a closed shop echo chamber.
I think so, because at that time as well there was loads of clones and like other social things like popping up every year or whatever, where now when it comes to social media you've just got your Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah, it's hard for something to break through.
There's not really anything else like poking out.
Yeah.
So with a lot of stuff with the internet, the same with like music and stuff. You know, people just go in the same couple of services.
Yeah.
And it's it's not. I can't remember the last time someone went, "Oh, I listened to my music on blah blah." I was like, "I've never heard of that. What's that?" It's always like, "Oh yeah, Apple Music, Spotify."
Yeah. Well, you possibly see from your streaming royalties and stuff like sort of pennies here and there coming from sort of very strange streaming services. That
there'll be like the odd penny from like
Yandex.
some service that's like big in like India or something like that. Like you haven't really heard of. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if we're sort of harkening back to those days, so 2006, sort of half a lifetime ago, like what's kind of feeding into the Shirobon sound then? So what were your influences on the project then, and like what are your continued influences now?
So actually, when I started making the Shirobon music, I was listening to lots of like remixes of like Final Fantasy songs and things like that. And a friend of mine, Alice, came up to me and was like, "Oh, if you like these remixes, you should check out this person," which was an artist called Henry Homesweet, and they do chiptune stuff, so like making music on like an actual Game Boy using the sound chip with like little cartridge trackers and stuff. And that was my first taste of the chiptune thing. And actually now Tom, aka Henry Homesweet, is like a really good friend of mine. And yeah, that got me into the chiptune thing. So I started off trying to make something like quite video gamey, using the Game Boys and things. And the first thing that kind of broke me into producing beyond the video game sounds was actually discovering Capsule and obviously like Nakata as the producer.
This is Yasutaka Nakata.
And obviously we were at Chiari Pummy Pummy together, which is one of the projects that he's produced.
And you'd been to see Perfume as well only a few days before as well. Another one of his projects.
It's been pretty spoilt this month. So he was one of the producers, which like, because some of his songs does have a video gamey sound to it as well. So he kind of got me encouraged into producing more. So his still up there with my influences today. But like obviously now, obviously of the last decade or so, I've grown as an artist. So he's still there, but there's been other people who have come in and sprinkled a bit of their influence.
Nice
stuff.
I mean, I wrote down a huge list of genres that kind of come to mind when I listen to your tunes or different projects of yours. But there's chiptune stuff in there for sure. There's like video game music that isn't that classic sort of chiptune sound, and there's kind of like Y2K kind of breaksy stuff, which is very on vogue at the moment. It's kind of rhythm game type stuff, like high
there's
energy.
a lot of rhythm game influence. So like I was playing like Dance Dance Revolution since I was a teen, and actually like when COVID hit and everyone was at home, got back into it and bought like a decent dance mat
for the hit workout.
For the absolutely. There was actually an interview with this big gym bro who like analyzed DDR and was like, actually it's a really good high intensity workout.
I bet.
And you're like moving your feet at 100 miles an hour for like an hour straight. It's like it's good cardio. But a lot of the rhythm game side of things has really paid an influence into a lot of the stuff I'm doing now, with like the higher tempos and like euphoric melodies and things like that.
You hear that stuff in that influence in things that are popular now, this kind of PC music type stuff and hyperpop kind of aesthetics. It's kind of like trendy people have kind of cottoned on to the fact that this stuff is fantastic and euphoric and fun.
Yeah. Well, I think hyperpop is definitely like a good example of that, because there's definitely a lot of those influences in that, but they're breaking more into like the club scene. Yeah,
for sure. But PC Music have just called it quits. Did you see that?
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they posted like a cryptic kind of link on their socials. And I think because they've been around for exactly a decade, and I think it's sort of like this very kind of...
want to wrap it.
Yeah, like this clean art project with like a tailored start point and end point. But yeah, like I remember about, I'd say a decade ago, I went with Yana Tyrrell, who sings on like a bunch of the Donaland stuff and things in our scene, and we went to whatever, I think I can't remember what it's called, the bar that's underneath the Ace Hotel in Shoreditch, but there was a PC Music showcase, and it was all like their head honchos there were playing and stuff, and it was just, I just remember thinking like, this music is really fun at a time when like, I don't know, it was post dubstep, everybody was getting into house and techno and stuff, and it was fine, but like trendy people were very serious about their dance music. And like we went there and there was like an act called Kane West who like styled themselves in
I know Kane West. In fact, Gus, who's Kane West, also in Caro Caro Bonito. When I started the chiptune stuff, I met him, I think it must have been like 2008. Met him through the micromusic.net forum, and at the time he was making chiptune stuff under the name Steve No Surname. So it was one of those.
What were we saying about names?
So that's really funny because I just met him from this forum. We met up for a pint or whatever and like hung out a bit. And it's funny how many people from that chipped scene has kind of re-emerged with like stuff like hyperpop and things like that. And obviously seeing his Caro Caro project and the Kane West and stuff is one of those ones that kind of caught me off guard. I was like, I remember him. I met him from the weird like old man forum for like the sweaty Atari tunes.
the nerd forum.
No, it really
it's funny was, when we were talking about this with like over our pizza with these Japanese musicians who are in like, you know, they were all in the kind of vanguard kind of fusion projects like Cassiopeia and Yellow Magic Orchestra, and then you see the same people cropping up, making club tunes, making game soundtracks, doing jingles for the trains. You know, it's funny that seeing the same people cropping up in different guises, but you know, maybe it isn't that surprising. But yeah, like the PC music thing, like they were at the start of this hyperpop thing, which is like having a big moment now. At that gig, Björk was in the crowd having a little boogie. She wasn't having a boogie; she was having a boogie, which is cool. I just remember thinking like I was going to clubs quite a lot, and it was all kind of like moody dubstep, post dubstep stuff, which was like really clever, but like a bit serious. And then this was like very Dago and fun. And they were like, people had their like umbrellas open indoors and stuff, and they were like shooting stuff around and dancing with Björk in a tiny club and stuff. It was like quite a special time.
That sounds amazing.
Moment. But yeah, I think some of your hyper poppy stuff captures that spirit. Like you've worked with Girlfriend of the Year, haven't you?
Yeah. I was just gonna say, because I've got a track with GFOTY who was on PC Music. And so and definitely a lot of our mutuals have been involved with that scene quite a lot. So I'm surprised I totally missed this about the PC Music ending.
They were quite low key about it. I think it's run its course, or like, you know, they've got it's like mission successful, right? Like they've kind of successfully infiltrated the pop mainstream. Like it started as like quite a sort of clever arty project, and like now
because it really blew up. So well, it's interesting to see where they're gonna go next. Maybe they'll start the next new thing. You know,
they know what it is. They're trend forecasters, aren't they? Nostradamus, you know.
I think they should bring back the elevator music with a big fat donk on it. That's almost going back into the same thing. But you know, like music's always evolving, and a lot of these label projects that end will rebirth, being involved with something else. I'm sure they'd bounce back.
I think a lot of sort of 90s jungle labels kind of come back and stuff, or when there's like renewed interest in old recordings, like people kind of reappear after sort of decade-long hiatus. But
also doing any project for more than 10 years is oppressive enough as it is. And being human beings, you always want to flirt with different things and see what happens. So yeah, good for them. I think.
mean, you've kept this project going for a long while, and you don't seem to be running out of steam.
Well, in a weird way, I feel like I'm still baby. You know, I think because I've never stuck in one genre too much. I always kind of like have my sound, but incorporate it in different styles. And it's one of those things, I'm always learning things from different artists and expanding that way. And honestly, every time I make a new record, it does kind of feel like my first one all over again. And I'm definitely in a place, because I'm working on an album now, and even that feels like my first proper album. But
well, you can do this because
you're... I'll say this about everyone I've done. I'll say especially now, it's like I've been experimenting for most of that time, and now all the different flavors of things I've learned are all starting to gel together. And I feel like the past couple of years is when I've really found my distinctive direction, I guess.
We've got that luxury as independent artists, don't we? Because it's like you're not on a major label where you're under pressure to repeat a trick if you've done something good, or you know, you're going to get dropped if something doesn't perform as well as the last project, right? Like we were discussing, like you've got your own label, Hyperwave Records, right? Yeah, you're not going to drop yourself, right? Unless
I hope not. But yeah, no. If I was, let's say, like a few years ago, if I got signed to a major, like my project would probably be over by now. I know so many people who have signed these deals and then lost control of their like creativity or whatever, and like the label heads are like, oh, you made this one-off house track and it went well, so now we just want you to do house. And it can be quite limiting, and it's just nice not to have someone on your shoulder all the time. So, and I think especially this day and age, so many great artists who are coming out just doing it all themselves, and it's not like the 80s or 90s where you had to sign to a label to get a music video and have it on TV so people can know who you are. If you know, the internet is so extraordinary now, and there's so many avenues that you can be, you know, like a lot of artists just got their album uploaded to a YouTube channel that uploads stuff in their niche and then took off that way.
Well, Harvey's record, Pizza Hotline's records, kind of, you know, obviously his records have had a life through more formal channels like the City Man Productions releases and stuff, but it had this kind of algorithmic YouTube life of its own,
absolutely.
right?
And those were done incredibly well. And it just goes to show, like, I think a lot of these big label heads are starting to sweat a little bit, because I think their thing is they're trying to nab up all these artists, but by the time the artists are getting those offers, it's when they're already doing so well for themselves that the label's interested. And if you're at that point, you really don't need them. They just want to.
You would need to grow so much to kind of stay earning the same as what you currently are, right? Like, because you have to share your money with.
Well, that's the thing
people
as well, because because I'm lucky enough to get to a point now where this is my full-time thing. I've got creative freedom and, you know, time to experiment and work on my releases, and I'm at that point now. But if I sign to a major and they're suddenly taking like half of that, maybe even more, with all the people that get their fingers in their pockets or whatever, I'm almost like
fingers in your pie.
I'm almost like back to square one in a sense. With less freedom. I don't really
unless
see
you went absolutely stratospheric, right? That's when sort of a major label.
It's like, you know, if like
maybe worthwhile. But.
If I got a message from Daft Punk and they said, "We're coming back. We need a third member. But sign this big contract." I'll obviously be like, you know what? Might as well. I wouldn't mind living in the helmet for a few years. But other than that, like 99% of the stuff up there, just I honestly think, like, especially for someone who likes to experiment with genres, I think a lot of label people hate that, because exactly, you'd put out a record and they're like, that did really well. You can't just turn around and be like, okay, now I'm going to make Y2K breaks or I'm going to do like a lo-fi techno EP, they're going to be like, no, you have to keep doing the stuff. I
think smaller labels, indie labels, are kind of are often happy for you to do that, but like you've set up your own label for that. Like you've got experience pressing and distributing and stuff. Like you don't necessarily need that, but not every artist is going to feel confident taking on that risk.
Yeah, of course, but I think it's a thing. Just like as you're doing stuff, a lot of it just falls together naturally because no one does all of this from the get-go. You'll like make a song, and then you're like, okay, I need to get it online, and that's the start. And then maybe one day you'll do an EP, and then before you know it, you're making an album and printing vinyls and putting it on cassette and all sorts, and distributing it, and mini discs. I'm actually very big on the mini discs. In fact, on my last album, I sold more mini discs than cassette and vinyl. So again, if depending on your fan base and the niche, I'm sure most of the people that bought one didn't even necessarily have a mini disc player, but it's just like a really cool like shelf item.
There's a whole shelf of mini discs up there.
Oh. Yeah. I've got a few spare. Next time I'll bring you one down.
Gonna do a little tape swap, mini disc swap.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think they're just like really small and cute, and they look really cool.
Yeah. The players have an amazing aesthetic as well. I think like Sony's kind of product design in that era. It's
basically just Sony Central.
Yeah, they had the sort of portable player and kind of cool headphone design thing on lock, didn't they? In the early 2000s, late 90s. We were talking a bit about sort of flirting with the mainstream. I was doing some internet stalking, and I see that you've got credits on something to do with Cher Lloyd and Kylie Minogue. Can you tell me what this is?
Oh, fair enough.
I'm like Nardwar.
I was saying that was definitely a Nardwar moment.
Yeah.
I thought all of this was offline by now.
I think it was on your LinkedIn page.
Oh yeah, I forgot I even have a LinkedIn. I made one, filled it in, never logged in again, and that would have been like probably like around 2012, 2011, 2012. Because I was doing my tunes for a little bit, and then at one point got a little bit burnt out with it and looked at different options that I could do with music, and I started looking into like producing for other people, and I did a remix for Cher Lloyd, which a friend like hooked me up with, and then at the time I got invited to this like writers camp where like there's just a room full of people and like a producer, and you all just get together and like write quotation hit songs. And for this one I went to, I didn't really know what to expect, and just put in this very bare bones studio. It basically just had like stock plugins and stuff. I was like, all right, we need to write something for Kylie Minogue.
You're not making it sound very romantic.
It really wasn't.
It's how the sausage is made, you know.
No, but it's one at the time. I think when I did the LinkedIn thing, we did get a track together, me and these other songwriters, and sent it off. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Then after I made my LinkedIn, never logged in again, eventually got a thing back just like, she's not going to use it. But with a lot of these things, what they do is they get a whole, but like literally like 30 different writers camps, and they'll all send over like a couple of tracks, and they'll go through them all and like pick the one hit one. So even though it sounds like really cool, like going into it, it's actually like quite a lottery. And so I nearly dove back into that a couple of years ago through some friends who are writing lots of like K-pop stuff.
A lot of that's written in Europe, isn't it? I hear
a lot of it's in Sweden and the UK mostly. Make like the vast majority of all the K-pop stuff, and then basically they make the songs, send them over, and they'll re-record the vocals in Korean and reproduce it. Nearly got into that, and like did a couple of briefs, but then it was like the same thing where like per artist they've got so many producers just all making songs and sending it over.
Yeah.
And if you're doing this all year long, like, eventually they'll pick your song and the payoff would be worth it. But for me personally, and I guess my mental health, I didn't want to like get turned down 20 times for like one yes.
For no reason either. You could tune in. You could turn in the best thing ever, and they could just refuse it for
all these
random
people
reasons.
involved are all very good at what they do. It's just a matter of taste of the group and their management and stuff.
They're looking
and
for something
all
specific,
sort of things. And just for me, I just don't want to be told no most of the time. And I went, you know what? I'm just gonna continue with my own music, where the only one that decides is me. And I can make all the bad decisions I want and cross my fingers.
I made a load of demos with a guy called X-Waves, who was like I think our most recent guest on the podcast. Actually, he's a Swedish guy, and he had a contact for K and J pop artists in Sweden. We wrote a load of demos, but they never saw the light of day.
Yeah,
but maybe we should just release them on a vaporwave.
I think we should just start a pop group and just release all our demos that everyone turned down.
Yeah,
could be big.
Oh man, it sounds so sad though, doesn't it? You could call it rejected, right? The reject.
No, but that would be like great lore for the fans, you know. It's like, especially if it's like such a great album, it's like it's all just rejected songs, every single one of them. It's like, what? I thought these were hits.
I want to, in defense of Kylie Minogue, I'm a big Kylie fan actually.
Yeah.
Her new song is quite good as well actually. I think it was called like Padon or something.
I haven't heard it.
It's good. It's quite Eurovisiony, but she did. One of my favourite sort of obscurities is she made a track with Toa Tay, who's a Japanese artist who's from D-Light. She's got a track called German Bold Italic, which is like a typeface, and it's like a weirdly it starts. It's got the same sample as Groove Is in the Heart. It's got the same intro, but then it goes into this like brutal techno tune, and she's just like like ad-libbing some very arty-farty lyrics about German Bold Italic being her favourite font. So if you're listening, check this out. German Bold Italic by Toa Tay featuring Kylie Minogue.
For all the font heads out there.
Yeah. The typo crew, I think weirdly Hiromi Hosono does some backing vocals on it as well. It's a bit of an all-star cast for a very obscure piece of music, but it's really cool. And like I think there's some lore behind that, like that like Toa Tay just like faxed Kylie, and I think they were staying in the same hotel, and he like faxed her room and was like, do you want to make a tune or whatever, just we can say any old shit. I'm sure I'm butchering that story, but the results are really cool. And there's sort of very sort of art house music video for it as well, because I think Kylie was seeing a cinematographer at the time. So there's like an avant-garde music video for this extreme deep cut. Do you remember that single Slow? It's like literally it was like a big UK hit, and it is like just her singing this slow chart pop song over like a modular synth loop, and it is really out there. Really, really out there. It's produced by Dan Carey, who's like a sort of fairly like left field UK producer. Really cool. Was thinking like, are there any sort of particular like milestones that you're kind of proud of along this journey? Like we were saying, it's quite a long journey sort of from the late 2000s up until now. Like, are there some kind of milestone releases? Are there some kind of milestone sort of tours and kind of gig performances that you kind of look back on particularly fondly?
Yeah, there's always a few. I feel like I have an EP called Dimensions. I feel like when that came out, things really propelled quite quickly from there. And shortly, like a year or two after that, I played at MagFest in DC and played the main room.
I'm representing DC on my cap.
Oh, there you go.
Got Washington Spirit is the ladies soccer team.
Yeah, wicked.
Love DC.
And when I played there, the stage I played one of the like video gamey club night things, and that room was packed out with 5,000 people.
Whoa.
And they said, they told me when I played, that's the first time during that event they couldn't fit any more people in.
Oh, wow.
So that was definitely like this is getting a bit exciting.
People were just kind of coming in because they liked what they were hearing, or, you know? they'd looked you up before?
Who knows? But there's definitely a lot of people.
What is MagFest?
Oh, MagFest is a music and gaming festival in the States.
Yeah,
it's like one of the biggest conventions probably in the world, I'd say. Nice. But it's quite split between gaming and music. So they have lots of like composers for like famous games playing, and stuff like that. But every night, once it gets late, the main room turns into like a club space that people can like wander into, and it's like inside like this massive hotel thing. So everyone's basically like living in the convention for the weekend. But yeah, there's that. To be honest, like it's been a pretty slow and steady rise over the last like decades. So there hasn't been any obvious massive jumps.
But an overly massive jump could be followed by a massive fall, couldn't it?
Yeah, well, so far things haven't dipped, and I guess a couple of years ago I did a collaboration through a game I've done a lot of music for, just Shapes and Beats, and we did an official collab with Undertale.
Okay.
And that like really blew up.
Yeah, so that's one of your biggest things on streaming, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's like my top track.
So that's an officially sanctioned thing, is it? So I just kind of assumed it was like, because you anyone can make a cover and you just pay for a license.
Yeah, of course, a lot of people do. But that one was a very like direct and official thing, because the Just Shapes and Beats I was working with like approached them, and I think it was the thing where Toby Fox, who made Undertale, was like, I'm interested in the idea, but I'd like to hear the remix, and if I like it, then we can make it a thing. Okay. And then obviously they told me that. I was like, all right, no pressure. Did my thing, sent it over, and in the end he turned around and went like, yeah, love it, you can have it in your game. And I think it's also quite particular on who he works with and stuff. So in terms of like official game things, there's really not many Undertale features and stuff. So I'm a big fan of the game as well. So that was
you're getting to meet your heroes, aren't you? Because we were talking about like you just kind of announced over dinner that you're personally friendly with Soichi Terada. It was a good drop over the pizza. I was impressed.
Yeah, well, because he has another project which is more like video gaming chiptune stuff called Omadaka, and there's a festival in Tokyo called SquareSounds Festival. Yeah, and we played together there, and then afterwards went for beers, and then after that, with every time we have a release out, we post each other CDs of our release and things.
Oh, that's so nice.
So that's definitely a meet your heroes thing, because actually before I knew about Soichi Terada as that project, I was a massive fan of Omadaka. Okay. And he was one of my main influences when I found his first few music videos from like back in the day on YouTube. He has lots of really gorgeous like animated stuff. And then
that's cool. I mean, I've kind of picked some things out of what I know of your career, and maybe it's presumptuous of me identifying them as milestones, but like on a fairly early release of yours, you've got a Mitch Murder remix, which is impressive to me. So
yeah, as I was saying your heroes, because like I was saying before, when I got started and I heard the artist Henry Homesweet, and now we're friends. Yeah, and he was one of my big influences when we started. The same with Mitch Murder. I found their music and completely fell in love, and then turned out they used to make chiptune. Okay, they used to do like tracker stuff, and then we kind of got chatting through that, and just like exchanged like a few messages. And then on the whim, when I did my Regain Control track, because it was quite down the synthwave route, I sent it over and was like, oh, do you reckon you'd be up for remixing it? And he was like, hell yeah, I'll do that. Wow. I was like,
you don't shoot a shot.
Yeah, that's it. I was actually like quite nervous messaging him, because I was like, oh, we've had a couple of friendly messages, I don't want to like blow it having requests or whatever. But he actually really loved the original song. So
I like that one. It's got, that one sounds like synth poppy to me. It's kind of, and actually sound like the vocal delivery is so like British, like almost like a Pet Shop Boys track or something, like so dry.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, because it's like I know a lot of people with that type of like vocoder vocal. A lot of people are like, how do I sound like Daft Punk? I'm playing with vocal, I don't know how to sound like Daft Punk. And it's one of those things. It's like, have you tried singing with a French accent? And then they'll do it and go, oh damn, that's actually pretty close.
Yeah, the human voice is 50% of the equation.
So my vocoder is basically like Cockney Daft Punk.
Yeah, no, I can hear your like spoken voice and your singing voice.
Yeah,
I like it, but I think that's like there's like a really great tradition of like British kind of like dry sort of moody electronic stuff, you know, industrial stuff, EBM stuff, synth pop stuff.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Like I hear that in that song. That's really cool. I mean, just some other things. I mean, like more recently, your sort of pack of PlayStation reverbs has kind of had like a sort of explosion in popularity stuff, didn't it? Sort of kind of YouTube producer kind of content creators kind of picking up on that, and it kind of going a bit nuts on Bandcamp for a bit.
Yeah, no, that was really interesting because I made this selection of just free to download impulse responses, which basically you can import into your music making software and it will give you the reverb sound of something else. And I extracted the reverbs from the original PS1 and made a little pack out of that. And at the time when I put it out, like, you know, people really enjoyed it, and a lot of like, you know, the 90s gaming heads were like, yeah, this is really great. Lots of friends of mine used it in their productions, but it kind of sat just like in the circles a little bit. It didn't really grow outside of that. But then yeah, when that video came up with from Drew, it really blew up because I think it shot it out to more of like the general producers, and then you know, like Out the Dark, hearing like, oh, PS1 reverb just feels like exciting. So I think like the reverbs themselves, they're lovely, but they're not like something I'd pull up the car and run into the desert for. But but in their own way, like, they're very quirky digital sounds, and where the digital age is coming back in with productions, I think it was almost like perfect timing when that came out, because a lot of people are getting into those like digital abstract pads and ethereal breaks and things like that. So it really popped off, and it was one of those ones, just like one morning I woke up and just had like thousands and thousands of downloads on my Bandcamp, and was like, what happened here? And then found this video, and then it was through the whole thing. Me and Drew's been like talking through the whole thing, so that was one of his first videos.
Wow.
And the first one that blew up for him, so we were both like really excited together. And he's actually from London.
Cool.
So we're gonna definitely have to arrange a meet-up of some sort.
I've just pulled them up here.
Oh yeah.
I haven't used them in tracks yet, but I will do. Very, very cool. We're talking about this kind of wave of console nostalgia and stuff. I think that links quite nicely to the club night that you're establishing. So you're at the moment like a one-off night, but there may be more.
Maybe more.
So tell us a little about this. This is called Club BIOS.
Yeah. So I'm organising.
Too many beers.
Yeah. I'm organising a night in London called Club BIOS, which kind of lends into that noughties 2000 nostalgia of, like, you know, PS2 just came out, all the soundtracks are like really futuristic and stuff like that, and a lot of people are producing that type of music now, but, you know, friends of mine included. But I just noticed there wasn't really any events that directly honed into that sound that I knew of anyway. Because
it's an online movement.
Yeah, it's right now it's a purely like online thing, but a very, very passionate online thing as well. So I'm talking to Harvey Pizza Hotline, and he's doing great in that scene. He's in London as well. I was just talking to him and being like, it'd be really cool if there was an event where we got, you know, took it offline. And So that's coming up on July the 14th at the Glove That Fits in Hackney, and
which is where we met.
Yeah, that's where we met actually. Yeah, because
at the Pure Life event.
At the Pure Life event,
when you were in your guise as a photographer.
Yeah, I was incognito, sneaking around with a cap and camera. But yeah, that was a really great. In fact, their last compilation really honed in on that kind of like PlayStation aesthetic.
Yeah, they've kind of rebranded in that style as well.
That's really, really awesome. So I'm hoping they'd do some more events soon. But,
I mean, that's a roster of artists to pluck from for future events, isn't it?
But for this one coming up, especially with like the whole reverbing thing going on, like we've got the Jason Page, who was the OG, one of the OG sound guys for PlayStation when the PS1 came out, and he did music for like Gran Turismo, Cool Borders, the demo discs, the adverts for Netty Rosie and stuff like that.
Mrs. Pizza Hotline was talking about Cool Borders. I think she's a fan.
Yeah, cool.
She's well into that.
Yeah. So that would be awesome. And then we've got like New Fori, who's really going down that hard trance Y2K sound, and then like Rob KTA, who's basically Ridge Racer Boy, and C-Trix and myself, who are both chiptune tracker guys. And so we're gonna take it offline and see how it goes. But so far the response to it has been really good, and a lot of people are really excited. So chances are we're gonna have to bring it back.
I bet you're gonna draw an interesting crowd for this Y2K thing. Like I think we as FutureSounds, I think Jay, my partner in Donaland, who's also in FutureSounds, he was saying like really should be not leaning so heavily on words like synthwave and stuff, and like leaning more on these kind of like more broader kind of nostalgic terms like Y2K and stuff, because actually like you're going to draw a younger crowd who maybe didn't experience this the first time round, but like they've kind of learnt about it through buying secondhand consoles or YouTube videos or TikToks and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's a good shout to lean more into like a mood and feel than a genre.
A visual aesthetic rather than like a audio kind of genre type.
Because with the night I'm doing, rather than being like it's trance, it's techno, whatever, it's more we're just pushing like an energy that we're going for. And I think because what you're saying about how people are going to look and things, I've already had people messaging me that they're planning their Y2K outfits and they're going to be all like baby blue and silver and reflective and stuff like that.
That's so cool. People being excited about a night out, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well, at the time when where we're basing all this aesthetic from, that was an exciting time for like music and fashion and similar energies, which I guess we haven't really seen in a hot minute. So just trying to bring that back in a new 2023 way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my mind goes to, I remember shortly after he died, I went to that Alexander McQueen exhibition at the V&A, and it was like one of these things. It was so popular. They had the tickets were the museum was open 24 hours, and I went at like 3 or 4 in the morning, and it was like kind of a club vibe in a museum, and seeing all these amazing sort of like rave and club inspired outfits and these kind of fifth element style looks and stuff. So hopefully you get some cool club kids in out there clothing.
I think so.
Yeah, just I think we're close to wrapping it up, but I mean, other than Club Bios, what have you got on the horizon? I mean, you've been talking about an album. Like, what's the kind of time frame for that? Very vague time frame.
Yeah, so at the moment I'm working on an album that's kind of leaning a bit more into the darker synthwave stuff.
Yeah.
So
synthwave's a good word to use. I feel like we haven't said that enough for like a synthwave podcast. Say synthwave a bunch of times.
Synthwave. No, but this one's definitely. But I'm going for, because a lot of synthwave tends to aim for like the 80s.
Yeah.
And they kind of have a bit of like a romanticized like soundtrack vibe to it.
Yeah.
Where the synthwave I'm doing, I'm going a bit more like edgy 90s.
Yeah.
With it, so there will be little like ravey breaks in between, but then it would drop into like the kind of stuff.
How do you do that, by the way? Because when we had Iverson on here, they were laughing that they didn't know how to make that sound, and I think they wrote to Sunglasses Kid, who's like a prominent synthwave artist, and they were like, get the Korg Poly6 instrument, like preset one.
Well, I've got a bunch of synths in the studio. I've mostly for this one, the ones I've been using the most is the Prophet 6, Dave Smith, the Moog Grandmother.
Yeah.
And I've got a Yamaha YS100, which is just a really cheap, really dark, messy kind of FM synth, which I picked up for like
this. This is DX100.
No,
right?
Hang on. I'll have to pull up a picture for you. It's
literally
this
shitter.
No, my one's worse. I promise you. No, but
I think my one's worse.
In a really good. Basically, the one I've got looks like.
Can you wear yours as a guitar?
No.
Mine's got guitar straps on it.
Got no internet here, but I'll show you in a bit. Basically, it looks like a massive calculator, and it's got like really crappy kind of bright yellow triangles on it, and the biggest volume knob you've ever seen. Bigger than the big knob. YS100.
YS.
Okay, yeah, bring it up in there. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that looks like shit.
But I got it for like 60 quid from someone on Gumtree.
Lego Belt's a fan by the looks of things. Do you know?
Oh yeah, he's a big fan of it. I think he's put out like a little sample pack with it.
Yeah, that's what this is. Yeah.
Have
you seen that video, the supercut of him going around his tour, and they've
synthesizer.
Yeah, if you haven't seen that, anyone listening, type in Lego Belt synthesizer. It is.
But this synth is actually a lot of fun to play on, and the way you like program FM patches are really weird. You like just tap the triangles and they like tweak different things off the presets. But that's played a big part on the release because it's like FM, but it's like a bit noisy and a bit like dark sounding with the circuit boards and stuff.
The output's a bit crunchy, is it?
It's pretty crunchy, yeah.
This output,
it's definitely the output on this definitely sounds a little bit like everything's gone through a bit crusher. But yeah, but for getting that sounds, it's like a little bit of this and just playing with a lot of sounds from like 90s like romplers and stuff, like the Kawai keyboards and things sound really great. But it's just drowning everything in chorus and reverb and just like distorting it.
Yeah, we were talking about
that really nice cyberpunk dirty sounds, which I've been channeling in with for this album quite a lot.
God, this synth looks like it was made on AI, right? It doesn't look like a real.
No, it literally looks like an AI generation.
Yeah. Wow. Cursed. YS100.
Yeah, it's also got the loudest pitch bend ever.
Loud?
No.
Like just the mechanical noises.
The mechanical noises on it, because it's like as soon as you let go, it's like like every time. If you could hear it, like it's. I'll have to make a sample pack out of it.
Yeah, you have to mic it up. The mechanical noises. That's funny, man. We got a few sort of listener questions in on our social media. Covered some of it already, but maybe we can just like finish by sort of banging through some questions that like fans have asked. So we've got full bellies after tasty pizza. This person called Triac, the climbing guy, asks, what's your favorite Japanese dish? I've seen that you're a bit of a Japanese chef based on your social media pictures.
I mean, it's very delicious food, and so I think I've been to Japan 4 times now, and I'm just very obsessed with the food. I also make a lot of Italian stuff, being half Italian myself, but yeah, with Japanese food, I mean, that sounds a bit cliche, but I'm definitely a massive lover of ramen. It's just kind of the end game.
What's the best city or where was the best ramen you had in Japan?
Actually, funny enough, I think both of them was in Tokyo. Actually, I've had some pretty good ones in the more rural areas. Yeah, but there's
like regional variation, aren't there?
Yeah, there's one place called Kikambo. Yeah, and their focus is on like numbingly spicy, and when you order from there, you got like a scale of 1 to 5 between the Sancho pepper, which basically turns your mouth numb, and the chili pepper. Yeah, but the flavor is absolutely insane. But there's another place. I can't remember the name now, but I just like wandered in. It was like next to Ueno Station, and they did like a squid ink ramen.
Oh, cool!
And that one.
Did
really
you do a funny poo
me.
the next day?
I didn't look. I didn't want to.
I bet it was weird.
But it definitely felt inky on the way out.
Yeah, it slid out.
Yeah.
Cool. There's I don't understand this question, but it might be a reference to a song of yours. Somebody says, "What's a goblin then?" Or is that lost on you as well?
That's lost on me as well. I think someone's just having a nice day.
Yeah. Okay. We sort of talked about your inspirations a bit. I mean, is there anyone other than Yasutaka Nakata who sort of
there's a few. So on this album I'm working on now, Power Glove for a very big inspiration, and they're like
for the more synthwavy
stuff. I was mentioning Toshiki Kadomatsu, who's
city pop artist, right?
A city pop artist who's literally like in my opinion, like the best. Not a single bad song. So many out is amazing. He's a massive influence, but I've also like ones that people might not realize is Bon Jovi.
You're a big Bon Jovi boy.
I'm a big Bon Jovi boy. Their first album, I rinsed that as a kid growing up. And there's definitely
maybe like the talk box business going on.
No, there's definitely you heard it here first, but there's a bit of Bon Jovi sampled in my songs now and then. Just no one's clocked it yet.
I thought you were a good boy because you're saying you're not really a vaporwave guy. I thought you were all above board, all your own work, no presets, no samples. Everything like artisanal, like made from.
Basically, you'd hear an occasional sound, which would just be like a really tight snippet of.
I love
something.
using like little one shots.
Little cheeky like glitches and stuff. I can't help but have a little dive in. And on this album, there's definitely some Bon Jovi moments in the middle of it.
No snitching, no sample snitching,
but also stuff like My Chemical Romance and Slipknot and things like that. So there's definitely some stuff that I'm experimenting with this, which goes quite heavy and distorted. That's almost goes into like a borderline like bandy headbanger moment in between.
Did you play in bands as a kid?
I played in a few bands and they all kicked me out.
What was your instrument?
Guitar.
Cool.
But every single one of them came back to me later after I was doing well with music.
Oh, yeah.
We should do some music again, man. Yeah. I think just when I was a teenager, I was a bit too cocky with my guitar playing. And
you were good, were you?
I was pretty good, but I think I just took up too much space. And I think that's when I realised I should just do my own thing where I can.
Do you play at all anymore? You can play for fun? Or use guitars in your tracks? Or?
I still play for fun with guitars. I do layer guitars into my songs still, but a lot of the time it would be like distorted stuff with like the super saw synth thing. So it all creates like a wall of sound. And other than that, I've just been a massive keys player. Not so much anymore, but every now and then I'll excite the fingers and people get confused because they turn around and I'm going and they're like, what?
There's like a strain of synthwave that's quite shreddy, isn't there?
Yeah, but I always throws people off because I don't really mention that I play guitar or anything. So now and then I'll pick one up and play a little something cool, and people are like, what? I thought you were like a techno man that presses play. I was
man, we're all like that, but there's so many electronic. I mean, you either make electronic music because you never at any stage touched another instrument in your life, or you had like awful kind of piano lesson experiences. And just
I've come from a jammy bandy background, and before I started doing this stuff, all my friends were like little metalhead grungers and would always be jamming and playing instruments.
It's a pipeline, isn't there? The kind of metal to electronic producer kind of
I think especially with synthwave, a lot of the heavier stuff like Carpenter Brute and Perturbator and things, most of that crowd are all metalheads.
Yeah, for sure.
So they definitely go hand in hand.
The audiences, for sure. I mean, it's a lot of kind of electronic music is kind of rock music sort of composed in the laptop, like so much like the kind of American take on dubstep, right? The sort of Skrillex sound is kind of using sound design to sort of do kind of almost gent style kind of guitar kind of riff stuff. It's very different to the UK take. yeah, just a couple more listener questions, then we can wrap it up. But Heck Silver was asking, have you done video game soundtracks, or is that something that you'd like to do more of?
So far, I haven't done a whole soundtrack, but I've done like guest tracks on games and like some rhythm games and things like that. Cool. I would really like to do a whole OST at some point. It'd be really cool to do one for like a shmup or like a cyberpunk game, or like even like an RPG or something. So I think there's definitely a lot of songwriting styles I really enjoy, which are more on the soundtracky side of things. But so far, no one's brought me on board. But
well, hopefully the right person's listening.
Yeah, I think so.
This guy Jesus Ortega 1 was saying, what's your favorite tune of yours? What are you most proud of in your back catalogue?
It's an annoying answer, but it's always the latest thing I'm working on. Because
You're saying it feels like your debut, doesn't it? Everything.
Yeah. There's one track which I'm putting out soon called Brand New You, and right now I feel like that's the best song I've written. But most of my like bigger ones from back in the day, I think if I had to pick a few from the past, I think Impact of TUI-77, Out of Love and Fox are definitely up there. Also on my last album, Warp, the interlude track I've got on that kind of gives me a feeling. But again, like,
you're proud of that, like compositionally.
Yeah. But it's honestly, it's always like the latest thing I'm working on, because that's the thing that's given me the most
I think that's important. It keeps you going, right?
Yeah. And I think as when I decide like an older song is my best song, it kind of like puts me against the wall.
Is it dispiriting if fans think that, or does it?
Oh no, that's all well and good. I've definitely got favourites, but I think for me, I'm always in the mind frame of my best song is yet to be written.
Nice.
And it keeps me in the zone to improve and keep pushing what I'm doing.
That's healthy. Right, let's finish. A musician called Havoc.
I know Havoc.
Yeah, a friend of his. They say, "Where's the after party?"
It's not at mine.
Yeah, it's not as mine as well, because my baby's trying to sleep. Yeah. So
no, it's ended up back at mine quite a few times. Basically, every time I put on a show, it just always end up with cab loads of people back to my house. But trying to sway away.
They travel over from Germany, do they?
He travels down from Germany, yeah. Wow. So yeah, no, it's
coming to Club Bios?
It's at mine,
hopefully, and staying at yours afterwards, right?
Yeah, probably.
That's funny. Let's leave that there. I think the other Future Sounds guys will probably join us for a little intro and outro on this, just to flesh it out. But it's been a pleasure having you down the studio. I've really enjoyed doing these in-person ones. I think Zoom can be a bit stilted, can't it?
Oh, it's much better in person.
Yeah.
But no, this has been great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. All right. Pleasure.
So that was Thom with Shirobon, and of course, as you know, if you want to grab hold of tickets for Club Bios at the Club That Fits on the 14th of July, you can check the link in the bio, the description for the podcast, and go from there.
Cool, man. Yeah, the guy's he's such a fascinating listen. When you do these kind of in-depth sit-downs with people in your studio, I do wish that we all lived a bit closer so that we could do a few more in-person pods. We'll have to get around to doing that at some point over the summer.
Definitely a great idea.
Because I think it works. You don't have to deal with the Zoom delays for starters, or me and struggling to get Poppy to sleep, or whoever it is that's having childcare issues that evening, or whatever it is, whatever it may be. I mean, I'm saying whoever, it's normally me that's late, I'll be honest. But
especially that idea that you guys talk about where you'd been outside eating pizza and you were, I forget what the phrase it was that you use now. You were talking about, was it, there was a phrase you and Shirobon used, was it cheese and...
yeah, I can't remember what you said.
No, it's gone as well.
What was this? This is the extra podcast, the Patreon podcast. It's like the spicy cheesy podcast or something. I don't know what it was.
That's the one. Yeah. But I like the idea of everyone just grabbing some pizzas, sitting around a few beers, microphoned up and having a chat. It's great.
Yeah, we should do that.
Sounds
yeah,
good.
outside my studio, not inside. Nobody putting their greasy paws over all my equipment, you know.
Oh, for sure.
Understandable. Respect. I'm going to be doing mine soon. We're moving in about fingers crossed. We're moving the week after Econ, so I'm going to have to put a lot of work in before we go, and then I'm going to be coming back with a terrible hangover, absolutely knackered, ready to go into move week kind of thing. So we're moving, and I'm going to have to convert my garage from scratch. So do what I did with this place, and but it's a bit bigger. So I'm kind of looking forward to having a clean slate and probably doing it a bit more efficiently next time as well. So
yeah.
And Enzo, I love you, mate, but you don't make life easy for yourself. Can I just
it wasn't me that wanted to move.
You and your brother boast.
I know.
You both did the same.
I know. It's like constantly adding fuel to the fire. But it wasn't actually me that wanted to move. It's Katie. She's been pushing me for months, and she's been pushing me for the best part of 2 years to move. And we nearly moved last year and had it fall through. Like anyone who's bought a house knows, especially when you're not buying for the first time, you're involved in a chain. Like if something goes wrong at the front or at the back of it, you can be pretty screwed, and it's hassle. But this place has got better parking. It's slightly bigger. I'm looking forward to, like I said, having a slightly bigger studio and a nice big garden and stuff like that. It'd be cool. It's
a very 2023 reason to move. Good parking,
mate. I make myself sound really old, but my missus does have a daughter, and we got another one on the way as well now. So.
Congratulations!
Congratulations, and it's family stuff, isn't it? I totally get it. I think it just makes me laugh that you're off to the US to an event, and then you just got to get home and move house. It's all right.
Do you know what? I'm actually going to pay one of those firms to come around and pack stuff for me.
So
that's wise.
I've been part of that process before, is what I'll say, and I wasn't a fan of it when I first heard about it, but then after I experienced it, I wouldn't change it for that.
No, it's a nightmare. I'll probably get we'll get the stuff that you really don't want people to see, or the stuff that you really don't want to lose. I'll get that sorted first.
Your special toys.
It's like when people have cleaners and they clean their house before the cleaner comes around. That's
my only special toys are my Technics 1210s and my Apple products. That's it. My life's not any more spicy than that, I'm afraid. Not any more spicy than I'm prepared to admit on a podcast anyway.
Not this one.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe in the spicy, what's it called? The spicy... Yeah,
cheesy. The spicy pizza one.
Yeah, we'll do that. So we'll be back again in a week's time with another podcast where we're going to focus more heavily on FlamingoFest itself, give you a bit of a breakdown of the lineup, hopefully, and a few more details like when tickets will go on sale and stuff like that. We'll officially confirm the date, though. Fakeman and Thom both kind of gave it away with their birthdays.
It was Thom first.
Yeah. We've got a few tunes to play, a few premieres that we'll be able to exclusively give some airtime in the next episode. But yeah, until then, we'll see you on the next episode of Future Sounds.
All right, see ya.